This heavy iron contraption isn't what it seems. Its deeply curved bottom and ornate handle feel surprisingly comfortable, but no one wants to hold it for long. There are no sharp edges, no moving parts, just this solid, silent presence, radiating a forgotten purpose. It's too heavy for baking, too oddly shaped for carpentry. A doorstop? Perhaps. A paperweight for an enormous ledger? Maybe. Take a good look. Do you know what this was for? Most people have no idea. This isn't just a curiosity. It's a silent testament to a time when domestic life demanded ingenuity, when everyday tasks were manual labors, and the tools invented to ease them were often marvels of simple engineering. Today, we're uncovering 7 vanished household tools that made life significantly easier in the 1800s, starting with number 7. Number 7, the carpet beater. Imagine a sprawling Victorian home, a brisk autumn day. Dust motes dance in the slivers of sunlight that pierce the heavy draperies. The annual spring or autumn cleaning was an event, a monumental task that often involved every able body in the house. Central to this ritual was the carpet beater. Not the slender, almost ornamental kind you might see in a decorative antique shop today, but a robust, formidable tool, often woven from rattan or stout willow, forming a wide, flat paddle with a long handle. Picture this scene. 2 strong men, or perhaps a housekeeper and a robust maid, wrestle a thick Persian rug out of the drawing room and drape it over a clothesline stretched taut between 2 trees. The carpet beater comes into play then, wielded with a rhythmic, almost violent energy. Asterisk whump, whump, whump. Asterisk each strike against the woolen pile would send clouds of dust, grit, and whatever else had accumulated over months of boot traffic billowing into the air. It was a dusty, arduous task, yet immensely satisfying. The sheer force required to effectively beat a large rug clean meant these tools had to be incredibly durable. Some early beaters, like the Acme brand from the late 1800s, were actually made of coiled wire, offering a more flexible yet still powerful impact. Before vacuum cleaners, this was the only way to truly deep clean a rug, extending its life and brightening its colors, giving the entire house a fresh, clean scent, free of stale dust. The payoff was a visibly cleaner rug and a pervasive sense of accomplishment, an assurance that the home was truly spotless. The invention of the mechanical carpet sweeper in the 1870s, and, more significantly, the electric vacuum cleaner in the early 1900s, rendered the carpet beater obsolete, transforming a strenuous outdoor chore into a quick indoor sweep. Moving on to number 6, a tool that brought light and warmth into homes, long before the flick of a switch. Number 6, the candle mold. Before electricity, before kerosene lamps became commonplace, candles were the primary source of artificial light in homes across America. Making them was a necessary skill, an essential household chore. Imagine a dimly lit kitchen in a farmhouse, the air thick with the smell of tallow or beeswax, perhaps a hint of lavender if the homemaker was feeling particularly extravagant. The candle mold, often made of pewter or tin, stood ready, a cluster of slender, conical tubes, typically 4, 6, or even a dozen, all joined at a common base. The process was simple yet precise. A length of cotton wick, often spun by hand, was threaded through a small hole at the bottom of each tube and secured, usually by knotting or a small peg, holding it taut and centered. Then, molten tallow, rendered animal fat, often beef or mutton, or sometimes expensive beeswax, was carefully poured into the open tops of the tubes. The molds would then be left to cool and harden, a patient wait that could take several hours. Once solid, the candles were carefully extracted, sometimes with a gentle warming of the mold to aid release. A household might have several such molds, producing dozens of candles in a single session, providing light for weeks or even months. The patent multiple candle mold from the 1850s, for instance, allowed for efficient, uniform production, ensuring a steady supply of illumination. The surprising payoff? Not just light, but a sense of self-sufficiency. A woman who could make her own candles was not only saving money but mastering an ancient craft, illuminating her world with her own hands. These molds, however, faded from common use with the widespread availability of factory-produced candles and, of course, the advent of gaslight and electric light. The ritual of pouring gave way to the convenience of buying. From illumination to daily chores. Number 5 reveals a hidden helper. Number 5, the button hook. In an era before zippers, Velcro, or even elastic, buttons were everywhere. Clothing, shoes, gloves, myriad fasteners that could be surprisingly difficult to manage. Enter the button hook, a slender, elegant tool that was once an indispensable part of every person's dressing table. Imagine a woman, dressed in her finest lace-up boots, preparing for an afternoon call. Her fingers might struggle with the tiny, often stiff buttons. The button hook, typically made of steel or brass, with a handle of bone, ivory, or wood, consisted of a narrow shaft ending in a small, curved hook. The user would slide the hook through the buttonhole, catch the button from the other side, and then pull it through the hole with a satisfying click. It was particularly essential for the high-button shoes and boots that were fashionable for both men and women throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. The button hook made quick work of what could otherwise be a frustrating struggle, saving fingers and maintaining dignity. Early examples, like those produced by the American Silver Company in the 1890s, often featured elaborate handles, turning a utilitarian object into a small work of art. The surprising payoff? It wasn't just about ease, it was about independence. A person could dress themselves entirely without assistance, something that might be taken for granted today. The button hook's decline was directly tied to changing fashion. The rise of low-cut shoes, lace-up boots giving way to slip-ons and eventually zippers, and the decline of intricate button clothing. It was a small tool that served a great many, only to be outmoded by the whims of style and convenience. Did your grandfather have one of these in his shed? Tell me below in the comments. Continuing our journey through the forgotten implements of the past, let's explore number 4, a tool that speaks to a time when fresh dairy was made at home. Number 4, the butter churn. Before refrigeration was common, and before industrial dairies dominated, most families, especially those in rural America, made their own butter. The butter churn was the star of the dairy, a piece of equipment that transformed cream into a golden, delicious staple. Imagine a bustling farmhouse kitchen, perhaps in Pennsylvania Dutch country, with the rhythmic thwack 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 of the churn on a warm summer morning. The churn itself varied in design, but the most common household type was the dash churn. This involved a tall, often wooden, barrel-like container with a lid, through which a vertical rod, or dasher, protruded. The dasher had a perforated disc or cross-shaped paddle at its lower end. Fresh cream, usually allowed to sour slightly to aid the process, was poured into the churn. The user, typically a woman or an older child, would then vigorously plunge the dasher up and down, agitating the cream. This constant motion caused the fat globules in the cream to clump together, slowly but surely separating into solid butter and liquid buttermilk. It was a physically demanding task, often taking 30 minutes to an hour of continuous effort. The Lehigh Valley churn, popular in the mid-1800s, was known for its robust construction. The surprising payoff of this labor was not just fresh butter, but a palpable connection to the food supply. You knew exactly what went into your butter, a pure, unadulterated product. The leftover buttermilk was also a valuable commodity, used for baking or drinking. The churn disappeared from most American homes as commercial dairies expanded, refrigeration became widespread, and store-bought butter became cheaper and more convenient than the arduous process of churning by hand. From the kitchen to the laundry room, number 3 addresses a task that was once utterly backbreaking. Number 3, the sad iron. The word sad here doesn't mean unhappy. It comes from an Old English word meaning solid or heavy. And these irons were indeed solid and heavy. Before electric irons, before even gas-heated irons, clothes were pressed with these formidable blocks of metal. Imagine laundry day in a small cottage, perhaps in upstate New York, steam rising from a kettle, the air thick with the smell of damp linen. The sad iron was essentially a solid piece of cast iron, shaped like a modern iron but much heavier, often weighing between 5 and 9 pounds. It had an integrated handle, sometimes detachable, often covered with a wooden grip to insulate from the heat. To use it, the iron had to be heated directly on a stove or over a fire. Women would often have several sad irons, rotating them. While one was being used to press a dress shirt, another would be heating on the stovetop, ensuring a continuous process. This constant exchange was essential because the irons would cool down quickly, especially for heavy fabrics. The sheer weight of the sad iron was key to its effectiveness, allowing it to press wrinkles out of heavy cottons and linens with brute force. The Mrs. Potts sad iron system, patented in 1870, offered a removable wooden handle that could be quickly swapped between multiple heated iron bases, a clever innovation that made the chores slightly less cumbersome. The surprising payoff? Beyond just smooth clothes, it was a symbol of meticulous care. Neatly pressed garments were a sign of a well-run household and proper decorum. The arrival of gas irons and later electric irons in the early 20th century, which offered continuous, regulated heat, quickly rendered the heavy, stove-heated sad iron a relic of the past, transforming a physically demanding task into a much simpler one. We're approaching our top 2 tools that highlight the ingenuity born of necessity. Number 2 is a small but mighty implement. Number 2, the waffle iron. Before the age of nonstick coatings and electric heating elements, the waffle iron was a marvel of culinary engineering, allowing cooks to produce crisp, delicious waffles over an open flame. Imagine a crisp morning, perhaps in a Pennsylvania Dutch farmhouse, the scent of fresh batter and melting butter filling the air. This tool wasn't just for special occasions. Waffles were a hearty breakfast, a satisfying treat. The antique waffle iron typically consisted of 2 heavy cast iron plates, hinged together. Each plate had a deeply impressed grid pattern, designed to cook the batter evenly and create those characteristic waffle pockets. Crucially, these plates often had long handles, sometimes several feet long, extending outward from the hinge. This design allowed the cook to hold the iron directly over the open flames of a hearth or a wood stove without getting burned. A common technique was to pour the batter onto one side, close the iron, and then rotate it frequently to ensure even cooking, a delicate dance with the heat. Some irons, like the Griswold No. 8 from the late 1800s, were particularly well regarded for their even heating and durability. The surprising payoff? Beyond a delicious breakfast, it was a testament to the versatility of open hearth cooking. It transformed simple batter into a culinary delight, providing warmth and comfort on a cold morning. The deep grid pattern not only made for a tasty result, but allowed pockets to hold syrup, butter, or fruit. The invention of stovetop and electric waffle makers in the early 20th century, with their enclosed heating and temperature control, gradually phased out these hearth-based irons, moving the waffle-making process from the intense heat of the fire to the convenient countertop. And now, for our final, most fascinating forgotten tool, Number 1, an implement that solved a problem we rarely even think about today. Number 1, the pastry crimper or jigger. Imagine a bustling kitchen in a prosperous home, perhaps in Boston, preparing for a grand dinner or a holiday feast. Pies, tarts, and fancy pastries were not just food. They were edible art, and their presentation mattered immensely. The pastry crimper, sometimes called a pastry jigger, was the secret weapon for achieving those beautifully finished crusts. It wasn't just decorative, it sealed edges and prevented fillings from oozing out. This delightful tool, often crafted from wood, bone, or brass, was essentially a small, handheld rolling wheel with a fluted or scalloped edge. Some models were surprisingly ornate, with carved handles or even a small decorative bird or animal at one end. To use it, a cook would simply roll the wheel along the edge of a pie crust, a turnover, or a decorative strip of pastry. The fluted edge would press a neat, uniform pattern into the dough, not only making it visually appealing, but also effectively sealing the top and bottom crusts together. It was a much faster and more consistent method than trying to pinch the edges by hand, ensuring that every pastry looked professionally made. The Victorian pastry jigger, with its often intricate designs, became a popular kitchen gadget in the late 1800s. The surprising payoff? It elevated the everyday act of baking into a precise art form, allowing even a modest home cook to create pastries that looked like they came from the finest bakery. It saved time and delivered consistent aesthetic quality. The crimper's eventual decline is less about a single invention and more about a shift in culinary practices. With the rise of mass-produced, pre-made pastry crusts, and a general move towards simpler, less ornate home baking, the need for such a specialized finishing tool diminished. It represents a small, elegant detail lost from our modern kitchens. These tools, now often found only in antique shops or museum collections, tell a profound story. They speak of ingenuity, hard work, and the human desire to simplify life, even in the most challenging of times. The hands that wielded these implements shaped not just dough or fabric, but the very fabric of American domestic life. If you guessed it before the reveal, you know your history. Subscribe, a forgotten tool rediscovered every day.